This is Beyond with Heather Tesch, where we examine near-death experiences and life itself, hopefully making this life a little better. Hello, everyone. Once again, my guest is Rev Bill McDonald. Reverend Bill, it really is wonderful talking to you.
Well, I'll tell you what, last time I was on your show, I was watching my screen. I kept having these, and we'll probably get them back again. Orbs were just crisscrossing. And I don't know if this thing will actually record that and pick it up because I've had this before and it's like sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But whatever we're doing, we're tuning in with something. And the light this morning is just shining in my California window here and through my redwood tree is just, and it wasn't until we starting this interview that the light just keeps getting greater and greater coming through the window here. So it's not me glowing. It's the light is upon me, but it's not me.
That's very appropriate for someone who's had a near-death experience. You've actually had 3, and in another episode, we did talk about your first near-death experience, and we'll have a link to that in the description. But let's go ahead and talk about your second near-death experience.
So what happened was the first one happened in the early 1950s. It's in San Jose. And I left that thinking, when am I going to die? Because I had this feeling, because I remember those two numbers, 29, 59, and that thing I had happened. And so there was a part of me that knew I had to take care of myself. No booze, no alcohol, no nothing, be vegetarian. I was really wanting to take care of my body because I knew if I didn't, probably 29 or 59, I was not going to be long for here. So I kind of intuitively felt that. And so what's interesting is this second near-death experience happened virtually because I didn't know the exact dates, but I know the month and the time of the year. I would say that it's probably the same day, the same week, 50 years later.
Wow.
If it wasn't the same exact day, So I had all those years and I was I was 58 and a half, right? 8.5. Now I'm 58 and a half. It's 50 years later, right? I've always wanted to go to India. And every time I tried to take a trip to India, when I was young, I started off going through the South Pacific and I was going to go from there to Asia and make my way. And then that never happened. And then I traveled to Europe and I bummed around Europe and I was going to cross through Yugoslavia and try to go across Turkey and, get to India that way. That never happened. And then I was in the army and then I thought, well, when I'm on leave, no, that didn't happen. Then I got married and had kids and that ain't never going to happen, and then I retired. I said, if not now, when? Something I wanted to do. And when I was a little boy in the hospital for 1 year of my life, I remember this book that I had read. Believe it or not, at 8 years old, I actually read a book called Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. It was printed and published in 1946, the year of my birth, by Paramahansa Yogananda. And it's I don't know if you follow Steve Jobs, who gave that book away to everybody when he met him. It was his book he gave away to everybody and then the Beatles used to give the book away to people. George Harrison, all these guys swore by the book. And so it's like the book. But back when I was a kid, it wasn't the book. This wasn't a fad thing like, well, the Beatles are doing it or, no, I read the book and I was fascinated by a chapter called Babaji's Cave. Babaji's Cave was about an Indian avatar. There's a lot of people that go by the title Babaji because you go online, there's Babaji this, Babaji that, because it basically means revered father. But the Babaji, the one that they talk about in the autobiography, that's a whole special thing. They don't know what the birth, the death, they don't know any of the personal history. They don't understand who this light being is. Babaji appears in different centuries and to different people. But meanwhile, according to the book, and I believe the book at that age, at 8 years old, I was just fascinated by it. Babaji appeared in this cave to reteach and reintroduce a meditation technique called Kriya Yoga. And he had this disciple that he reawoken and said, "Hey, look, you're my past disciple, and I want you to teach this." And at that time, the big thing about Babaji's cave and that whole appearance was Babaji allowed Larry Masha, that was the band he was giving it to disseminate this teaching, not just to the most highly evolved, which is where it was at and fading away and dying, but to anybody that was sincere. Meaning, you didn't have to go give up. I mean, you could be a householder, get it, and just do it because everybody would benefit from it. So that was the essence of the story. But apparently, this cave has remained at that time, fairly hidden. Nobody really knew it was at. Since then, Self-Realization Fellowship, knew where it was at, discovered it, and they preserved it, and they get access control to it. So if you want to visit it, you have to go to India, got to go to the Himalayas, you got to go to their ashram that's the closest. You got to talk to Swami, you got to convince the Swami that you're worthy to go to the cave. And then they have these kids take you up there on a tour, and they got a key to unlock the thing to get in there. It's really complicated. It's not easy to find. And so I went there, I hired a driver, and I was with a friend. And we finally found the ashram. We've been traveling around for, I don't know, a couple of months in India at the time, and we're trying to find this place. We finally found it, got there. I talked to the Swami. I said, "Swami, I want to go to this cave." And he says, "Well, we're having an event in a town, in a city of what was it? Some other town they were going to go to for a convocation, and everybody was going to leave, and it was just going to be a caretaker there." He says, "We don't have any volunteers to take you up there and show you where it's at." And I said, "I don't care. I'll find it." And so he says, "You sleep on it." So I get up the next day. The Swami takes me into his office, and I got my driver with me, my buddy, and he goes, "So you want to go?" And I go, "Look, I've waited 50 years to come here. I don't know if I'm ever coming back. I want to go see the cave." He says, "Well, I don't have anybody that can show you. No guides." He says, I said, "I'll find it on my own." He says, "Well, nobody ever does." I said, "I'll find it on my own." He says, "Okay, I'm going to draw you a map. If you can follow the map." Okay, so he gets a piece of scratch paper out, gets this piece of paper out, and he just scribbles. I mean, you leave here, you take a right, you go down a few blocks, find the main road, go north, go east, whatever. He wasn't sure of the direction, but make a turn there. Look what's logical. Go down the road 10, 20, maybe 40 minutes, and there's a road on this side. There's a road over here. Don't take the road over here. Take the road over here. But there's 3 roads over here, so be careful which one you take. Well, which one? You'll know. So, and then when you get off that, go down and you'll see a dirt road. Eventually, we'll pull off in the dirt road, get out, start walking, and there's a trailhead that's marked with a sign. Follow it at the top. He says, can you find that?" And I was not going to say no. I said, yeah, sure. He says, "You got to be back before 5:30 because I'm locking up the gates here. So all your stuff's in here. You'll have to go to a hotel or something because it's closed." I said, "Okay." I mean, this is like dawn. I mean, the sun's coming up, right? Yeah, no problem. And it's supposedly only 30, 40 minutes away, right? So my driver's looking at me going, because he's going to do the driving. He goes, "Mr. Bill." I said, Trust me. So we get in the vehicle, and I just tell him, "Turn here, turn there, turn there." And he'd look at me like, "Okay, you're the boss. You're the boss." And pretty soon, we turn down a road, and I turn to a dirt road, and I go, "Okay, park here." And he goes, "Okay." He says, "I ain't going with you crazy guys. I'm going to sit here and sleep in the car, right? Let you guys go out and wander around, right?" So walking down the road, and pretty soon I see the sign, but somebody's pulled the sign up and thrown it off onto a mountainside. And so there's an arrow, and the thing says to the Babaji's cave. But on the other side, there's like 10 trails, cattle trails, people trails. So you don't know which one it was taken from and thrown on the other side of the road. And anyway, so we take a guess, and we take a lot of bad guesses, and we keep going uphill, and we're hiking for like 3-4 hours. I mean, this should only been a short hike. I'm sweating. I'm getting dehydrated. I'm not sweating anymore. Um, I had I had a problem. I got sick when I got to India from eating truck stop food. Basically, I was roadside. Yeah, it's good enough. These guys are eating it. Yeah, you don't do that in any country. You eat with the. So anyway, so I was sick, and I'll just let it go with that dysentery and everything. So I'd lost 20 pounds in 3 weeks. 20 pounds in 3 weeks. So I was already sick, and I was suffering from bad heart. I already had a heart attack in Machu Picchu, and I had a heart attack in Bolivia on the Isle del Sol, Isle of the Sun, and I've had probably 5, 6 heart attacks up to that point. So, and then I was having problems when from an injury in Vietnam where I got blown up by a rocket in Vietnam, and I was knocked unconscious. I was blown 20 feet in the air, and uh, and then since then I was having convulsions, and stuff. I was having real problems, you know, did no treatment for how do you treat how do you treat a concussion, right? So anyway, so I was having those problems. So I'm hiking up. I'm dehydrated. Didn't take any water. Didn't take a jacket. Didn't take a flashlight. Didn't take matches. Didn't take any food. No candy bars. Nothing. Nada. We're just hiking, short sleeve shirt, and I mean, what could go wrong, right? And then every time I'm having a problem, I'm off the trail someplace trying to take care of matters and keep the trail clean. And meanwhile, I'm walking in and out of something similar to poison ivy, poison oak, whatever it is in India. It's something similar. And I got welts all over my body now and the itch. And and I'm but then I'm thinking, well, I'm not sweating anymore, so I must be okay. I went from profusely sweating to dry. I go, I'm good now. I mean, who knows about all these, sunstrokes and all these other things, dehydration. Nah, I'm not sweating. I got to be good, right? I'm a man. I can handle this. So we keep going up there, and then my heart is going boom, boom. I mean, I could see it, like that in the shirt. It was just like boom, and I'm getting dizzy and everything else. Finally, after hours, we reach the top, and I see a gate, and we got the keys. We were given the keys. I unlock the gate, and I go inside, and they built a temple there, Babaji's temple, a little temple. It's like a little church. There's got a big portrait of Babaji standing there, with this in beautiful radiance of a person, if he's a person, of this being. And I get in there and I lay on the floor for a half hour. I don't have the energy to go to the cave yet. So we meditate, I get my energy back, and it's just so we walk the last 150 yards or so, 100 yards uphill, and we come to a cave. And this is a shame, but in India, as in all places in the world, sacred places, it doesn't matter. People rob, graffiti, they do all kinds of stuff to it. So to protect this cave, they had like a door you see on a jail, with the bars to go into the cave. You had to unlock this to go into this sacred cave to keep all this, because people were going in there and chipping rocks out and then selling rocks from Babaji's cave or taking them as souvenirs. And so, not a good thing. So I get inside there, and there's a mat on the ground, and there's a little altar. Somebody had a little altar there. It was all just kind of stuff that people left there. And I get in there, my friend's with me, and he says, "I'm just following you, whatever you want to do, right?" I mean, he didn't know anything about this. So I sat down there, and I go, "Man, I just spent 50 years trying to get here, and I just wanted to savor it all." And I also, here's the strange thing: before I left for India, my first, and I thought maybe it's my last trip, I want to take everybody with me, at least in my heart and my prayers. I want to take everybody, and everybody gets something from that journey, meaning my family, my friends, people I went to high school with, people I was in the military with, my enemies, my bosses, hitchhikers I picked up, strangers I saw, beggars, all these people. I sat down for like a week typing name and Tenadisha, real small, 4 pages, front and back. I had all these names, and something was like the hitchhiker on the corner of Highway 99. Boom, I didn't know this guy's name. God knows who I'm talking about. And so I had all these people on there, people that harmed me and hurt me, and all this stuff. Good, the bad, the ugly. I had them all in there. I figured they all needed Babaji's love and blessing. So I took that there with me. And in fact, I took it all points, all holy points around India before I went there. It was, and I'd take it out and I'd mentally look at the list. It was really long to read, but I'd look at it and mentally kind of get the gist of everybody's name. So I took it out. I offered it to Babaji. I said, bless all these people. I want them to experience what I'm going to experience in this cave. Give them the energy, give them the love, embrace them. And I did this prayer, right? Now, to skip ahead and we'll come back. Several weeks later, I end up at the Ganges. I go out, I rent a boat, and we take off at, it's dark. We're in the middle of the Ganges River when the sun comes up. Sunrise on the Ganges. It's more beautiful because of the pollution. The pollution makes the sun look this brilliant color, almost like your sweater. It's just red, orange. It's just, and all the sky looks great. Unfortunately, it's all pollution, but it's just so beautiful in the morning. And so I read that on the little boat while we're out there in the Ganges as this guy's rowing me around, right? And then I took a match and I held it, the corner of it, and I burned it and then dropped the ashes into the Ganges. So that's how I disposed of this sacred list. But I took it to all these holy spots, kind of doing the same kind of prayerful thing for all these people. So me going there, I was hoping it was a blessing for everybody who was on that list. And there had to be at least 1,000 names, or no names, just descriptions, because there was some people from school and people I didn't remember, Girls sat behind me in, senior problems class. There you go. So there I was in the cave and we meditated a good long time. And then my friend looks at his watch and goes, we got to be back by 5:30. You got to close out, because we took all day to get up there just about, right? So we leave, we lock it up, we start hiking down, have no clue how to get back. We don't know how we got there. My friend trusts me, says, I'll follow you. I go, yeah, okay, that's smart. So we're starting to go down, and it's another 3-4 hours later. Realize, I don't know what the height is that this cave's at, but it's in the Himalayas, maybe 8, 9, 10,000. I don't know what it is. But there's mountains in front of it between you and the sun that are up there 15, 16,000, big, tall mountains. And by the time the afternoon comes down, the sun is lower in the sky, meaning all you're getting is this shadow. So you're hiking in the middle of the day and you're in this cold shadow. It's like chilly. I'm actually getting chilled, So I'm standing on this edge of a cliff. The cliff is 30 foot, maybe deeper down. It wasn't a sheer cliff. It wasn't straight. It kind of went down and there was a couple of outcroppings, 2 or 3 feet. So, and I'm saying that because my heart's going boom, boom, nothing. Whoop, and I black out. And I fall off this cliff and kind of do a somersault onto my back. And apparently I hit the outcroppings. It wasn't a straight 30-foot fall onto a rock. I got to bounce a couple times, so it wasn't that awful. So I bounced a couple times, and then I landed on a boulder. The boulder was about the size of a Volkswagen Bug, car. It was about that size. It was kind of rounded. I find myself laying on top of this boulder, literally laying there, looking up at the sky and the clouds. And I realize I'm not in any pain. That was a good fall, and I had heart problems, no pain. And then I realized there's no heartbeat. I'm not breathing. So I go, oh, this is familiar. I've been there and done that before, right? Something's going on here. I've been there. I've done that before. And next thing you know, I'm transversing this distance between my body and wherever I'm going out here. I'm looking at my friend on the cliff, and I'm looking right over at him. And that's 30 feet above my body. And I'm looking down, and again, I look at my body again. I go, boy, I don't want to be that body. That body's got all kinds of problems coming up, man. Heart problems, all kinds of stuff, right? And I'm looking at my body, and I'm just feeling great love. Great love. And it was a remembrance of the love I had before. And it was also a remembrance of the love that I had before that I realized I had to come back. So that was kind of like I kind of realized I wasn't probably going to escape. And so I'm looking at my body, and then I see this giant cobra crawling across my ankles, my feet, part of my legs. Now, my wife always corrects me. She says, well, the first time you told this story, she says, the thing was only 6 foot, 7 foot. And then the last time you told this thing was a king cobra, 12, 15 feet. I said, I tell my wife, I said, when you have a cobra crawling on your legs, they're all huge, And I couldn't see the end of it because it was coming out of grass, going over to rock, and then its head was in the grass on the other side. So I never saw the beginning or the end of this cobra. It just kept coming and coming and coming. So anyway, but it started crawling over my legs, and I got excited, not afraid, but excited, like in love with that snake. It was like I had no clue then what was represented by a cobra or the snake and the kundalini and all that stuff. I mean, people come back later, oh, that's kundalini. And so I go, I didn't know any of that. I just looked at this beautiful snake, and I wanted to hold it, and I wanted to love it. And so when the snake started crawling over, all of a sudden it was like, clear, chunk, and I jump up off the rock and I take a breath, and I'm breathing, and my pulse is there. And the first thing I do, I start reaching down, and I'm starting to grab the snake. Now I'm grabbing the snake, and my hands are like this, and I can't get my fingers to touch around the part of the snake that I'm trying to grab. So the snake is bigger than this because I can't grab it. And it's slipping through. And I keep grabbing. I'm grabbing a wild cobra, poisonous, venomous cobra. I'm grabbing it and chasing it and practically stepping on its tail through this grass where I just got sandals on, bare feet. And I'm in this grass with this cobra, chasing him through the 3 foot tall grass, reaching in there, grabbing him, touching him. I mean, he could have. And then finally he comes to this little trickle of a waterfall. I mean, probably as big as the wall behind me. It was only like 8, 9 feet. And it just trickled down no more than just a trickle of water, just a little, like a water faucet, just a little trickle. And it was going into a little tiny pond. But the snake went up, and behind this little tiny waterfall was a little cavern. And it slithered its body behind it, curled up, and then did this, looking at you like that, right? And I just stop and I go, wow, that's beautiful. And then I remember reading that chapter in the book Autobiography about the cave, where in this cave, this Larry Masha, this devotee, was given his last desire, which was this golden palace. And afterwards he was told it was materialized in front of him. That's another whole story. But part of the story was afterwards he was told to go down to the stream and wash. And when he went down, there was a little trickle of a waterfall, and he was washing. And that's what I remembered when I'm standing there. That part of the story came to me, that this is where he washed at, because nobody knows where that was at. I could never find it again if my life depended on it. I mean, I accidentally fell into it, literally. But I'm there and I'm going, this is where Larry Marshall bathed after that experience with Babaji. I'm going, wow, right? So then my friend is yelling. I hear my friend yelling from this cliff, hey, you're crazy, come on. Anyway, so we finally get back together, and he says, I'm leading. He says, there's a creek. We're going to follow the creek. All water goes down to civilization eventually. Wherever we end up, we're at, right? So we followed it down. We ended up at a farmer's house. Told the farmer we were lost. We hired his children to take us back to the car, because everybody in this little valley, these little farmers, they all saw these crazy guys hiking earlier in the day and saw the vehicle. They all knew what was at. Yeah. So we paid these kids, and they take us to our vehicle. We get in the vehicle. We drive back just as the guy's locking the gate. He's out and standing, and he sees us, and he goes, did you find Babaji's cave? I said, oh, yeah. He says, he just shakes his head, right? And so I said, let me tell you, because I was excited, right? Let me tell you. So I started telling the story about the falling down, the rash from the venomous, plant, and had bruises. I had a torn shirt. I had dirt on me from the fall. I looked terrible. I was all scratched up and everything, and I was chilled, because now it was about 5:30ish, after 5:30, and it was cold. It was dark. This was like in October, right? So it was dark. it was, and it was getting, and I was chilled, but I didn't care. I had to tell him the story. And I gave him every detail, falling down, going to the cave, the prayer list. I told him everything. And then pretty soon there was this American lady from Alaska, and she was visiting the ashram, and she was leaving because just guys were staying there. And she was at a hotel down the street. And she kept interrupting my story. She goes, Mister. And I finally go, what? She says, don't you know what they say? And I said, oh, okay, I give up. What do they say? And then she says, it is said that those that have the most arduous journey to Babaji's cave have the greatest blessing. And the Swami just goes, says, nobody's going to do that. Then he just shook his head and walked away, right? So then we meditated that night and everything else. And of course, here's the best part. Here's the finish of that story. So you would think, October, you would think that first chance I got, I would go into town and go see a doctor. That would be what a woman would do, or a intelligent, sane man might do. But a typical man, it didn't kill me. Let's keep going, right? So I spent a couple more months in India. So finally, in December, I'm home in December, and all of a sudden I have this bump on my forehead, right between the eyes, or spiritual eye. And I go, that's really odd, man, because it just grew. So I go to the doctor, and they do an autopsy. Is that the right word? Yeah, biopsy. Autopsy. I'm dead, right? Be careful, I don't want to rush that. So They do a biopsy, and she goes, that's all. Okay, you got this fast-growing cancerous tumor right in your face. We don't understand it. It's just, it's like boom, just like that, right? So they cut it out. It takes an hour to cut it out. It's huge. And they stitch it up, and I have all these stitches. I come home, I take the bandages off. My wife says, what do you? I said, no, it's so cool. I mean, how many people go to India looking for the guru on the mountaintop experience to be enlightened, come back and have that cancer removed from their spiritual eye? I mean, how cool is that, right? So still don't go to the doctor for the heart. So that's December. End of January, the last couple of days of January, after collapsing about 6 times in my garage with a heart attack, I'm thinking, yeah, maybe God's trying to tell me something. Maybe it's time to go. So I tell my wife, I said, I'm not feeling too good. I'm just going to drive over to Kaiser Hospital here in Sacramento and get checked out. Okay. I didn't tell her. I was having a full-blown heart attack. I mean, it was like, boom. I mean, it was like, and I get in my pickup truck with my 5-speed shifting. I'm driving 7 miles to Kaiser. And then I get to the emergency, and there's no parking. So I park in another parking lot, walk, about the length of a football field to get back to ER. I come in there, and there's a line of 18 people, and there's another line. I get in the people line with 18 people, and I wait 15, 20 minutes to get up there where she's handing clipboards out to people. And she goes, okay, if you take this clipboard, go over there, fill it out. I said, okay, great. Nobody asked me at this point, what's wrong? Nobody. No, I'm not bleeding, so I'm standing up. So I sit down, I fill it out. I get another line, about 5, 6, 7 people. I get at the top of the line, I filled out. And one of the questions was, what do you think's wrong with you? Well, first off, the first question was, do you have Kaiser? That's the first question.
So insurance.
I go, yes. Which is interesting because I had a heart attack in 2011. We'll talk about that one later. In 2011 in India, and I'm in ER, the first question is, what's wrong? First question in America, do you have insurance? First question for God. I mean, that was it, right? Anyway, so I go, yeah. Then she picks up the clipboard and she goes, okay. Says here, and she kind of rolls her eyes and kind of does this. Says here, you think you're having a heart attack. And I said, no, I'm actually having a heart attack right now. She says, how'd you get here? I said, I drove myself. She says, where'd you park? I told her. She goes, yeah. And she says, you stood in that line? Oh, yeah. And then you stood in this line. And you're having a heart attack, right? I go, yeah. I'm having a heart attack. Sit down. I'll be the judge of this. So she puts a stethoscope on her. And all of a sudden, I hear bells of light. I don't know. I don't remember what color it was, what the code was, blue, black, I don't know, some kind of code. I hear this code going out, and this light's flashing. And she's going, sir, sir, you're having a heart attack. I just calmly go, yes, that's why I came in. I'm having a heart attack. No, you're having a heart attack right now. I go, yes, I know that. Please calm down. I'm all right. No, you're having a heart attack. They're saying, no, I'm wheeled into a room. And now all of a sudden they got all kinds of time for me, right? So I go into the room, and here's where the first near-death experience comes into play with the second. Because for all those years, the 2959 symbolization that I had from the first experience was that 29 I'm dying, is that 59, changing my diet so I live better, longer. I mean, all this stuff was in my mind. So I'm sitting there, and I asked the doctor, I'm sitting there waiting because he wants to rush me off for, they want to go inside and do some stents and stuff, and he wants to operate. And I go, Doc, I said, this is the last time I ever complained. I go, this is kind of unfair. I haven't figured out why me. The first time I've ever asked that question, I never asked again. But it was like, I said, when I was young, I said, I did 50 years being vegetarian. I said, 3-4 years being a vegan. I said, exercise, meditate, no drugs, no booze, no nothing. I went down the whole list of stuff I didn't do, right? And then he looks at me, and he looks at my medical stuff, and he says, had you not done that, Mr. McDonald, I would have guessed you probably, based on your history, family history and everything, and your genetics, you'd been dead at 29.
Interesting.
Instead of almost 59, which you'll be in a couple of weeks. And I go, 29, 59. So by me following my instincts to change my diet, my way of life, never to do drugs and all that heavy stuff, I got to that point. Anyway, that's the second near-death experience. I hope people take a look at that, whatever it's worth, whatever value they get out of it. I think the biggest thing that I get out of that whole experience was and this sounds funny and kind of odd after all that weird stuff, but me taking the list of all these people in my life and asking for them to be blessed, actually blessed me more than it did them. And I felt that I really was adding energy out to the universe. And I mean, I had people on that list that were my enemies, didn't like me, did bad things to me, betrayed me. But I wanted to give them all love. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it, Heather.
Well, thank you, Bill. Your stories are so fascinating. And in fact, if people want more, you've got a couple of books, and we'll put links to that in the description. There's one. There's another. But let's go ahead and talk about your third near-death experience in our next episode. So everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Bill, thank you for joining me, and we'll be back with more. Thanks for joining me on Beyond with Heather Tesch. Please add comments and questions you'd like future guests to answer. Also, if you liked what you heard, please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe. That'll help keep this podcast going. You can also go to Beyond with Heather Tesch to look for more episodes.